Hello there, early friend, and welcome back to my weekly Writer's Life vlog, where I talk about my writing process, my struggles, my stats, my obstacles, and along the way I offer a little bit of writing advice and inspiration. Today I'm going to talk about my brainstorming process, how it's been going on my new project, and additionally I'm going to talk about the concept of judging story ideas. It's weird because outside, it was sunny 2 seconds ago, and now it's all dreary and cloudy and cold and London-like. Spoilers, I don't live in London, but it's rather London-like outside. What I assume London would be like, I don't know, I just know it from movies and books. I've never actually been to London. I've never actually traveled that much. I've traveled from here and there. I've been everywhere, man, searching for you, babe. Anyhow, musical references out of the way, what have I been up to this last week? As I've been talking about, this is the last update. By the next time that we see each other again, I would have finally have a lot of writing done, a whole week's worth of writing done and ready to go, and I'm excited for that. And I'm doing the final steps of preparation on the brainstorming for this upcoming work. Now, I have the very, very bad habit of talking about a story before I actually write it, which happens to always pretty much every time be problematic for one particular reason. And if you've written a work from start to finish, or halfway there, I think that you understand what this problem is. What is that problem? The problem is that stories and story ideas change the moment you write them. Hell, at least for me, they change the moment I brainstorm them as well. If you're familiar with my guide to how to plan a novel, which is available on my YouTube channel, you know it, I know it. Anyhow, my brainstorming process basically begins with writing down all the things that come to mind that seem exciting at this very moment. Why? Well, of course, because you should be excited about the act of writing, or you should write about things that excite you and make you want to write, because after all, you're going to be spending a long time with this project, so it might as well start from a point of excitement and interest. And after that, I kind of condense them, mesh them together, and look at all these ingredients, and I ask myself, what can I cook with these ingredients, you know? Today's secret ingredient is roguelikes and procedurally generated dungeons? So, even more funny was the fact that, on my day off, when I went to see Kitty, there was a little bit of downtime because she was off doing errands, so I sat down, pulled open my laptop, and I did a little bit of brainstorming, which wasn't work, I can assure you, because brainstorming is not work for me. It's just, I think I've made this joke already, but I use acronyms for my files on Evernote, and all of my brainstorming files have the acronym BS, because that's literally how I feel about brainstorming. It's literally just blah. It's BS. And you basically just, get all these ideas out there and see which ones you like and which ones you don't. And if you're familiar with my brainstorming process for how to plan a novel, I literally look at all of the people, all of the places, and all the events that I think the story would need, and I expand on them. And I ask myself, what do I know about this character and what do I not know about this character? And it was funny, because all of my characters began as particular ideas or concepts. And this story, which for the time being, I'm going to refer to as TDH. For personal reasons, don't worry about it. It's an acronym, don't worry about it. Just TDH. For now, just called TDH. And it's a very, I don't want to say it's small story, but there's two central characters, and everyone else is basically a side character. And both of the central characters were just kind of concepts at the beginning. I was like, this is the librarian, and this is the girl. And as I was brainstorming, I was like, okay, what do I know about this person? And I know this, and I know that. And it was almost like, I don't want to say shaving ice, but it was almost like sculpting. I like that Michelangelo quote that is how do you sculpt? And it's and he said, I saw the angel inside of the marble, and I had to set it free. And that is almost how I feel about brainstorming, because it's the character is there, I just have to free up all of the details and all of the little facts. And the character who began as the librarian became something entirely different. And new, and that is the fun for me. He went from being a shadowy person wearing a cloak to, a more of a business-like, almost like Isaiah character from Durarara, If you get my flow, you know what I'm talking about. And it changed a lot, and that is the fun for me. For me, as I've said in the past, and I'm gonna say it again, writing is the act of discovery. I don't wanna attack English teachers. I do that way too more often, and they already get the short end of the stick, so that's just mean. But the culture of idolizing writers and idolizing authors and putting them on pedestals creates this culture, this idea that writers know everything about the world before they walk in. And that is, of course, an absolute filthy lie. Okay, that may be a little bit of an exaggeration. There may be writers out there who absolutely, totally know everything about the world before they walk in. I don't. For me, writing is the act of discovery. I don't know the story until the moment I actually finish writing it. And most of my friends are the same way. And a couple or a few of your, biggest favorite authors are also the same way. One of my favorite, and I like to quote him because he's the most ironic of them all. The person we all assume planned everything before writing discovered the story firsthand. You know who that is? J.R.R. Tolkien. J.R.R. Tolkien has this great quote from one of his interviews where he touches a little bit on the fact that people think that he knew everything, and he says that he didn't. And he said that the moment Strider showed up, he had no idea who Strider was, but he kept writing. And when the reveal came that Strider was actually, as a matter of fact, Aragorn, or Viggo Mortensen, he was Aragorn, even he himself was surprised because he didn't know. Because, again, the act of writing is the act of discovery. And the act of revision is the act of make it seem like you weren't discovering anything. Let's touch really quickly on the main subject of today's video, which is not me. Which is actually not me at all. Although, really quickly before I go anywhere, next week, the next time we see again, I'm gonna have stats for the first time ever in this new revamped video series since the Camden Arima version of these videos, and I'm super excited! Oh man! And this is my new schedule as well, so I'm gonna be able to have like tons of writing done. I'm so excited. I'm really happy to finally be able to share stats again. Anyhow, that'll be next week. As for this week, I want to touch on a question that I've gotten a lot recently. And I say that as though it's a new thing. I always get this question. I get this question all the time, so I thought, let's tackle it today finally. About 30% of the questions that I get on Tumblr are people sending me their story ideas or the idea for their books and asking me, hey, what do you think of this story? Now, I have a couple of problems with sending a question like that. And it's not primarily the fact that you're reaching to somebody you look up to, because that's pretty much what is going on. They look at me and they're like, hey Max, I've been following your blog forever and I wanted to get your input on this story idea. I understand the value behind that. I understand why somebody would want to reach out and get a feeling for things. The problem for me arises from two particular points. One is that a part of the origin of this question is the feeling. This kind of little nugget inside of the question that is, I want to get feedback on the story idea before I start writing it, so I don't waste my time writing a story idea that may not be good. Now, I'm pretty sure that like through 2-3 vlogs ago, I talked about this very same idea, so I'm gonna talk about another element of story ideas, and that is the fact, and did you catch the foreshadowing earlier on? Story ideas change. Story ideas always change. From the moment you start writing them, everything goes to hell. And that's kind of part of the writing process itself. And I don't know many writers who legitimately stick by the outline. My personal feeling, and the way most of my friends feel about this as well, is that the outline and the plotting are secondary to the actual storytelling. They were your personal first impression of this world before you actually met this world, and basically, the book, the writing, it's always right. So if there's ever contradiction, the story's right, your outline was wrong, and you have to move on from there. Simple as that. Now, why do I feel like this? Why do I so confidently talk about stuff like this? My personal feelings are this. If you're in the middle of writing and you realize, hey, this character has just said something that contradicted the outline. This character said that they don't have parents when I pretty much clearly brainstormed their mom and their dad. What are you going to do then? Are you going to stop? Are you going to censor that character? Are you going to put words in their mouth? Or are you going to realize, hey, maybe I was wrong, and I'll just keep writing instead. As someone who writes a lot, and you will see once you actually see my stats, I do actually write a lot and I take pride in that. But as someone who does all this writing, the number one secret for me, and it's not even a secret, it's a tip. My number one tip is that once you start writing, for your writing session, do not stop. Don't stop to check the outline, don't stop to make fixes or to edit. You start writing, you keep writing, and once the writing session is over, you can stop writing. Simple as that. Why? Because much like building a combo in a fighting game, like getting the momentum going to hitting the zone, and I think some of you know what I'm talking about, like the zone, that moment when you become the storyteller and you're actually just flowing through the motions and it just becomes a matter of You don't think, you don't react, you're just telling the story, and it becomes a natural sort of process. It's almost like when you walk up and do a presentation, or when you play sports and you're doing something, you're not questioning what you're doing, you're just doing it. You're not trying to tell a story, you become the teller of stories, the storyteller. And it's really hard to get to that moment. It's really hard to build the momentum so you hit the zone. So what is the worst thing you could possibly do is that when you're in the middle of the zone, you have to stop dry to check the outline, to stop dry to check something else, or to let something like your phone or the internet distract you. Those are terrible things. And as somebody who takes pride in writing a lot, I have to stay in that zone. I have to get into that zone as quick as possible and stay there for the remaining of the writing session. Now, I have strayed away from my point. I definitely have, because I realized that I had not gotten anywhere near close to what I was going to say. But I talked about this a little bit earlier. Story ideas change. From the moment you conceive them, I mean, like, I'm not going to share my original story idea for this next project because I'm not confident with sharing it, but it began as something really small, something very, very, very little. And as I began brainstorming it, it changed. It went in a different direction. And I am dead certain that the moment I sit down, tomorrow, as a matter of fact, for my time frame, tomorrow when I get up in the morning, I prepare my coffee, I sit down and I start writing. I know that everything is gonna go to hell the instant I put pen to paper, or the instant I start typing. I know that everything is gonna change. And it's weird. I almost wish that everyone had experience being a game master, running a pen and paper role-playing game, because that teaches you, oh my god, that teaches you how to write a story. Because you can plan, you can do everything you want. The moment you sit down with your players, or rather, your characters, everything, and I do mean everything, goes to hell. So I think that maybe you understand why I feel the way that I do about judging story ideas, and when people send me their story ideas asking me to review them or to rate them, and it's a little silly for me because, like, not the back of my mind, really the entirety of my writerly being is screaming, it doesn't matter what your story idea is right now, because it's going to change. It's going to keep changing until the moment you reach the very end of the story, and then you're gonna put it in your drawer, let it sit for a while, and when you come back and revise the story, you will then finally realize what the story is about. That's the writing process, at least my writing process, and the way my writing process has been for my entire writing career, pretty much. You come in with an idea, the story goes its own direction, you give it time, you finally come back once it's all finished, and you finally get to read the story again as though it was written by somebody else, and you ask yourself, after all this time, after our first draft and an entire fresh read, what is the story really about? And then you dedicate the revision process to creating that image and moving forward from there. I think that people forget a lot that writing is a process. And again, it's a process. It's a long process. And you're going to write this book, which usually takes the longest for most people. I know that for myself. You're going to revise it. You're going to let it sit. You're going to revise it again. You're going to send it out to your beta readers. And the story that you began with is most likely, almost guaranteed, to not be the story that you end up with. Why? Because stories change. And as I've said a million times again in the past, and I'm going to say it again, for me, in my opinion, writing is the act of discovery. So, go out and discover the story. Don't be afraid to let it change to be its own thing. I've said in the past that stories are like children, and you can be a good parent, and you can actually let that story be whoever it wants to be, or you can be a bad parent and keep telling that story that it should be what you wanted it to be from the beginning. I think we should aspire to be good parents to our little babies and our little stories, so consider this a friendly reminder to let your story be whatever it needs to be. I'm coming in with an idea. I've finished brainstorming. I have my playlist ready. I've got everything to go. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to make coffee. I'm going to get up. I'm going to turn on my computer. I'm going to get writing. And I'm going to strive to be a good parent. To let the story be whatever it needs to be. I think it's going to be a story about a procedurally generated death labyrinth with an Isaiah-like Durarara character, but it could be anything. And that's the fun part, right? I mean, if everything went according to the outline, would it be anywhere near as fun? If everything went according to plan, would it really be any more exciting? I don't think so. I think the excitement comes in the act of discovering, in not knowing who Strider is until the moment he reveals to you that, as a matter of fact, yes, he is Aragorn. And other silly nerd examples. But that's just how I feel about things. I hope that, you you don't mind, then I hope that if anything, I gave you another point of view. But feel free to go into the comments below and let me know what you think about the concept of judging story ideas and the brainstorming process and just story ideas in general. I think that we talk about that a lot because it's the point where a lot of writers begin, and I think it's entirely human and understandable to worry and to reach to other people for feedback. But personally, I think that you should jump in. You should allow yourself to discover that story and to be a good parent to your story ideas. But yes, I've gone on way too long. I gotta get going. As always, though, I want to remind you that if you want even more writer positivity, advice, and prompts, you should head over to my official writing blog over at maxkirin.tumblr.com. Thank you for watching. Thank you for spending a little bit of your day with me, and I'll be seeing you soon. Mwah!